Canada's military is finding itself facing new challenges in an increasingly tense world. Recruitment rates are falling. There are growing calls for culture change within the ranks. And the question is becoming how the country is planning to face those challenges. Joining us now is the Minister of National Defence, Anita Nunn. Good to have you back on the program.
Nice to see you again, Anne-Marie.
You recently completed a tour where you visited Canadians who are deployed in Scotland, Kuwait, and Jordan. Those troops are responsible for everything from helping to deliver aid to Ukraine to helping preserve stability in the Middle East. What were your conversations like with them?
I can't tell you how important it was for us to visit the troops because of their incredible work on behalf of our country. The Canadian Armed Forces are serving Canadians in our country every day, whether it's at home in forest fires and floods or overseas, delivering aid for our allies to Ukraine, as well as maintaining our presence in the Middle East. Those were the types of thanks that I was giving to the Canadian Armed Forces for their incredible service.
And what were some of the concerns they were expressing to you?
Well, they were very grateful for our visit because it's important at this time to show unity. And the Chief of Defence Staff and I were very frank with the Canadian Armed Forces that this is a time where we're focusing on cultural change in the Canadian Armed Forces. And I will say there is support across the forces to build a modern military where Canadians are incentivized to join the ranks of the armed forces, to put on a uniform in service of this country. But the most important thing, Anne-Marie, was to thank them for their commitment to this country. As Canadians, we rely on their service every single day, and it is just wonderful to be able to say thanks to them for this incredible work.
It must have been very special for them to have you there to do that in person. Let's talk about some of the culture change. You've made it your mission to do just that in the military last week, unveiling the roadmap to implement all 48 recommendations put out by former Supreme Court Justice Louise Arbour. But Arbour says because the reviews are internal, that your approach is, quote, misses entirely the central point of my report, which is the need for CAF to open up to a lot more external, not just scrutiny, but input. What is your response to that?
I was actually surprised by those comments by Madame Arbour because she put on the table 48 recommendations and we are implementing every single recommendation, in addition to appointing an external monitor to oversee the entire process, whom we've already appointed, Madame Jocelyn Tarnier. In addition, we're going to be providing quarterly updates to the Canadian public, and the external monitor herself will provide updates as well. So the implementation is continuing apace. We are putting our shoulders to the wheel, and we will continue to demonstrate progress in terms of cultural change, just as Madame Arbour herself requested in her final report of May 2022.
One of her key recommendations was taking a look at the military colleges, talking about changing culture before they land in the military, in the training was so important. She seemed very critical of the fact that you're planning to do a review and seems to feel like more change is needed.
Actually, her recommendation states that we should do a review. So once again, we are following her recommendation itself. We are going to do a review of the military colleges, and we've already begun to implement reforms in that vein. The cadets, for example, do have exit interviews. They do make sure that diversity and inclusion is part of the curriculum. So we are already addressing some of the concerns, but obviously change needs to occur, and that's why that study itself is going to occur as well.
The Department of National Defence reportedly received an approval to buy 16 F-35 fighter jets for $7 billion. There was a push to buy these same jets a decade ago under the Conservatives. That was criticized by then Liberal leader Justin Trudeau. Why did your party change its mind on this purchase?
It is extremely important to provide the Canadian Armed Forces, and in particular the RCAF, with the equipment that it needs to defend our country and to be at one with our allies. And indeed, the 88 future fighter jets, which we will be purchasing, is part of that interoperability that we need to ensure occurs with our allies.
Minister, I just wanted to ask you really quickly, when you were giving your announcement about how you were going to implement the 48 recommendations from Madame Arbour, you got very emotional at one point of the press conference. I wanted to ask you what that was about.
Well, of course, this is a time of considerable change in the Canadian Armed Forces. We are at a pivotal moment, and we need to ensure that all of us are at item in terms of going forward with reforms so that every single member who puts on a uniform in service of this country can feel protected and respected as they do their jobs on behalf of our country. And in this pivotal time, we are determined to get it right.
Minister, thank you for joining us, and happy holidays to you.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. If I could just mention to all the kids out there, you can track Santa at noradsanta.org. And as we build up to Christmas Eve, that's pretty exciting.
There you go, kids, from Canada's Minister of Defence. Track Santa, NORAD's on it. Thanks so much.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.